A ghost spirit, from an Ouija board, once told me I wouldn't be crowned a bride, that I'd be buried alive on my wedding day as my alpha fiancé married his first love instead. I had rolled my eyes and laughed it off as just a dumb teenage game. Maybe me and my classmates, the Four Stooges, 17 and reckless, didn't send the spirit off properly. Maybe it had cursed me. Because it happened. Here I was, dripping wet from the shower, trapped in the bathroom, while my alpha fiancé's first love slipped into my wedding tux and marched down the aisle as Mrs. Not Me. In only a flimsy bathrobe, I shivered in a bathroom that grew colder with every hour, cold tiles biting at my bare feet everywhere I stood. I stayed huddled in all the bath towels I could get my hands on, there until late at night, when the last of the wedding guests had finally left. Only then did Damien Steele appear, slow, composed, and utterly unbothered. His excuse was that Milo's mother was gravely ill and that her last wish was to see her Omega son wed. For now, just play along and stay quiet, he said, his tone matter of fact, as though granting me a favor. When she's passed on, I'll divorce Milo and marry you back. But he had no idea that the freezing cold in the bathroom earlier had snapped the lovesick fool of me fully awake, ripping love out by the root. On this so-called wedding night, Damien at least had the decency to come home instead of spending it with his substitute bride. But I no longer allowed him into the bedroom we shared. I locked myself inside while he went on reveling with his best men in the living room, still celebrating, drinking themselves into a stupor. Sometime in between, I overheard his best friend's voice drifting in from outside the door. "Hey Damien, that stunt you pulled tonight with Milo, shouldn't you at least have talked about postponing the wedding properly, with Park Min-jun first?" Damien's voice came low, tight with irritation. "I said already, buddy, Milo's mother is dying. We couldn't delay." His friend hesitated. "But what if Min-jun complains to your grandfather about this stunt you pulled? One word from him, and everything could fall apart." Damien scoffed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Min-jun isn't that kind of person. He loves me too much to betray me. Beside, my grandfather's still clinging to the old agreement." Hearing that, warmth drained from me, leaving numbness. In a daze, I knocked over something. The photo of me and Damien fell and crashed to the floor. A red slip of paper tucked behind the frame caught my eye. It was a marriage certificate. I saw then Damien and Milo smiling brightly, their names printed side by side. The registration date was a month ago. Now I understood. While I had been pouring my whole heart into planning our wedding, apparently, they had already planned everything. Now I understood why Damien had been so insistent that the tuxedo fit perfectly even when I complained it didn't. Why he refused to let me change the flowers from pink to hydrangea blue. Because the real Omega bride was never me. My tears fell as the marriage certificate slipped from my hands, along with a wrinkled photo. On the back, in Damien's handwriting, "A future without you is a nightmare I can't endure." 3 years ago, he began his love confession with that line. 6 months ago, he engraved it inside my ring. But when I flipped the photo over, it was a photo of Damien kissing Milo Wong in a sea of flowers. Nausea rose in my throat. Then laughter. My laugher. At myself. "You pathetic Min-jun." Then I turned to look at my phone lay nearby. I picked it up and dialed the number that had rung me 100 times incessantly all day. My call rang once before a voice burst through like a dam bursting. "Are you okay? Wasn't today your wedding? Why wasn't the bride standing next to Damien? Was you?" A flood of questions tumbled from the other end. I cut him off. I asked, "Do you want to marry me?" "What?" Then there was a stunned pause. Then came a shaky laugh. Next came a high-strung, "Sure. Hell yes." I woke the next morning, my body blazed, feverish as though plunged into scalding water. When I picked up my phone, and media headlines instantly stabbed my eyes. Headlines. The Steele and the Wong families hosted the wedding of the century. The elite gathered to celebrate. Photos of Damien Steele and Milo Wong sharing passionate kisses covered the front pages of every major news outlet, stunning everyone. But all of this should have been mine. So, it was official. They were official in the public eyes. At 10 the same morning, I stepped out of the Guchong County Courthouse, hand in hand with an alpha, Dojin Steele, Damien's younger brother. After tucking our little red books into his suit jacket, Dojin led me to the small park beside the court office. Then, lowering himself onto one knee, he held out a delicate gift box, about the size of an A5 notebook. A wedding gift, he said with a small smile. For us. Wow, your ring box is at least 10 times bigger than a normal one. I joked with a laugh. Wow, that big box for a ring? I couldn't help but developed a flicker of morbid curiosity that the ring inside must be absurdly monstrous. But when I opened it, I froze. Inside, no ring. Instead, there lay a tidy stack of stock certificates, property deeds, and a single black card. His assets, all handed to me without restraint. Seeing my stunned expression, Dojin scratched his cheek awkwardly and looked away. Ah, your call was too sudden. I didn't have time to get you a proper ring, he admitted, embarrassed. Hearing that, my heart wobbled to life, finally thawing out after the absolute train wreck of last night. Ah, Dojin, you silly puppy, I mumbled, choking on emotions inside. As much as I wanted to milk this impromptu Dojin moment for all it was worth, his duty call still superseded this momentous moment. He had work to handle. So he asked his driver to take me back to the house I shared with Damien to pack my things. Before we parted, Dojin bent down, pulled me into his arms, and released a sharp wave of his pheromones, the scent of lime over scotch. Such antic was an alpha's way of laying claim. I closed my eyes and breathed him in. My legs went weak. You're mine now, Dojin murmured against my ear, then bit my earlobe softly, leaving a temporary mark. I flinched, but the sting faded quickly. I'd always liked his lime-in-scotch scent ever since both brothers differentiated. Both brothers exuded the same decadent mix of sin and spirits in their pheromones. I'd used to worship the smoky bite of Damien's whiskey-soaked cedar with scent too. But after Damien's betrayal, I found Dojin's limey scent hit me sharper, more dangerous, more alive. Dojin finally released me. He lifted my hand, brushed his lips against my fingers, and whispered, I'll come pick you up tonight and take you home. When I reached the villa, an MPV was parked by the gate. The rear hatch was open, and suitcases were being unloaded one after another, carried into my house by the servants. Milo Wong was moving in. He stood there, giving orders like he owned the place, like I was the stranger intruding. When he saw me, he didn't even flinch. No guilt. No shame. Just that same serene face Damien used to call gentle. We'd met maybe 2, 3 times at most, casual introductions, polite smiles. Yet now, standing in the doorway of what used to be my home, he had the audacity to say, Oh, hi Minjun. My things are a little heavy. Could you give me a hand? It's okay if you can't. I'll just make a few more trips. His voice was soft, sticky sweet, the kind that literally made people want to protect him. The kind that Damien, in all his glorious stupidity, fell for the scam, like a Labrador feeling proud of its shiny collar. The main housekeeper stepped out and informed Milo that the guest room nearest to the master bedroom was ready for Mr. Milo Wong to move in. Her tone held that half-fearful, duty-bound deference, like she already saw Milo as the new mistress of the house. I ignored them both and walked past without a word, straight up to the bedroom. I locked the door behind me and began packing. My heart hurt too much to speak, too much even to think. It wasn't much. I decided to take only the essentials and leave everything else behind. But there was one thing that mattered above all. The jade bracelet my mother had given me, our family heirloom. It wasn't in the safe. Panic clawed at my chest. That bracelet was all I had left of my parents, after their deaths and the collapse of our company. I never wore it except for occasions that bound 2 families together. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. I dialed Damien's number. He picked up only after my 3rd calls. Damien had bluntly said he let Milo use it on their wedding night for show. His words made my blood boil. I snapped, You have 60 minutes, or I'll toss your new Omega bride out like yesterday's trash. The moment I hung up, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. The anger had burned through every bit of energy I had left, leaving me dizzy. I collapsed onto the bed and drifted into a heavy sleep almost instantly. Less than an hour later, the sound of pounding on the door jolted me awake. Damien was back. I opened the door and silently extended my hand toward him, palm up, demanding the jade bracelet. But his eyes flicked to the packed suitcases behind me, and his expression darkened. Minjun, are you done with your tantrum yet? What the hell do you want more? He snapped. I shot him a dagger glare. I said break up. Call off the engagement. The words hung in the air like shards of ice. For a brief moment, his anger faltered, caught off guard by how serious I sounded. Okay, I admit I was wrong not to discuss it with you. I'm sorry, Damien said, his voice softened but firm, not pleading. But you don't have to run away like this. I told you last night, I only wanted to fulfill Mrs. Wong's last wish. Do you really want me to be that heartless? She's like a godmother to me. Damien, I hissed. You even had Milo move in. We have to make the act convincing, he replied evenly, as though it were the most rational thing in the world. Otherwise, Mrs. Wong might get suspicious. His reply made me sick. But then I remembered, I wasn't his fiancée anymore. I was the omega of another alpha now. Whatever he did, whatever his motives were, had nothing to do with me. Well then, I said icily, I'll just move out. Better yet, why don't you have Milo move into this room with you? He's your official omega now, and I'm just the mistress, right? The words sliced through the air. Damien blinked, thrown off by my composure. Seeing I hadn't broken down and turned hysterical, his tone softened. He reached for my hand, but I instinctively stepped back, dodging his touch. My jade bracelet, I said flatly. Don't make me repeat myself a third time, Damien. He exhaled, shoulders sagging. It's with Milo. Probably in his suitcase. I'll get it back later. You have 24 hours, I said coldly. I grabbed my suitcase and moved toward the door. He blocked my path. Minjun, he said sharply, frustration flaring in his eyes. What's the point of being jealous now? Everything's already official. So that was it. In his eyes, my decision to break up and move out wasn't about betrayal or dignity. It was jealousy. A bitter laugh escaped me. You're already legally married to him. Why keep clinging to me? I yanked open the drawer, pulled out their marriage certificate, and hurled it at him. The papers fluttered to the floor between us like a cruel punchline. Then I turned toward the door. Damien froze, eyes locked on the document, realization dawning that I knew everything. You're making this about yourself again, he said quietly. You never try to understand anyone else's pain. Milo's been crying every day. I'm just doing what anyone with a heart would do. Can't you show him a little compassion? I stopped mid-step and turned back to face him. So you married him out of pity, I said, my voice low and cutting. And you expect me to thank you for it? What kind of logic is that, Damien? I shook my head, a bitter smile on my lips. Your heart's big enough to hold the entire Pacific Ocean. Good for you. But I don't tolerate deceit, not even a grain of it. My defiance must have struck a nerve. Damien's face twisted, his composure cracking. Minjun, he snapped. I guess your parents dying so young made you forget what it feels like to lose someone you love. For a moment, I just stared at him, stunned. The man standing before me became total unrecognizable. The Damien Steele I had loved for 5 years now looked like a total stranger. He knew better than anyone how deeply losing both my parents in one night had scarred me. Yet he still used them, to wound me where it hurt most. The room began to tilt. My vision blurred at the edges. My body felt drained, boneless. I reached for the banister, fingers barely catching it to steady myself. I needed to get out. Out of this toxic house. Out of his toxic orbit. I turned, forcing my legs to move, but before I could take another step, the world went dark. When I opened my eyes, the smell of disinfectant greeted me. I realized I was in the hospital. For a second, it wasn't the Damien of now that I saw, but the one from 3 years ago. Back then, he wasn't so composed, so polished. He was younger, softer, his smile shy, his warmth unguarded. I remembered the day he wrapped that uneven blue scarf around my neck, the one he'd knitted himself. The stitches were clumsy, the yarn scratchy, but his sincerity had been flawless. That was how our love had begun. Who could have imagined it would end like this? When my vision cleared, the present Damien came into focus, sitting by my hospital bed, his usually neat hair disheveled. The moment he saw me awake, he leaned forward urgently. Minjun, I'm sorry, he said, his voice trembling. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have said those things. He clasped my hand tightly, desperation flickering in his eyes. Let's have a proper talk, just the two of us. I want. His phone rang, cutting his words abruptly. He froze, jaw tightening. After a pause, he stood. I'll take this outside, he murmured, stepping into the corridor. When he returned a few minutes later, his expression had changed, tense again. I need to run out for a bit, he said. Rest for now. I'll come back at 4 this afternoon and take you home. By dusk, Damien still hadn't returned. My calls went unanswered. After waiting an hour, I finally took a cab home. When I reached the villa, their laughter greeted me from the kitchen. On the way back in the cab, I'd already seen Milo's post on social media. In the corner of the photo, revealed Damien in an apron, cooking in the kitchen. Beneath it was a caption that read, "He remembered all the dishes I love most." I sneered. Damien once claimed he hated the smell of grease, that he'd never set foot in a kitchen. I guess with Milo, even oily fumes smelled like perfume. Quietly, while they were playing house happily in the kitchen, I slipped upstairs, heading straight for the bedroom to grab my luggage and leave for good. But the suitcases I'd packed so neatly just hours ago were now gaping open, their contents scattered across the floor. My clothes were strewn everywhere. A few pieces bore ugly black smears. No interrogation needed. 9 times out of 10, I already knew whose masterwork this was. I swallowed my rage. Fine. Then I didn't want them at all. I left the bedroom empty-handed and headed downstairs. The moment I stepped into the kitchen, the air reeked of their indecent mingled pheromones. I forced the nausea back down my throat. "Damien," I called, my voice cutting through the clatter of utensils. "Where's my jade bracelet?" Milo spun around, startled by my sudden presence. Leaving Damien at the stove, he walked toward me, away from the kitchen. He was wearing the blue scarf Damien had once given me. His fingers brushed over it with deliberate grace, a smug smile curling on his lips. "Damien was worried I might get cold," Milo said softly. "He told me he made it for me back then, but I'd already gone abroad." Milo was clearly waiting for a reaction, eager to watch me break, but I didn't give him the satisfaction. I stayed calm. Right now, the only thing I cared about was my mother's bracelet. My lack of emotion threw the slut off. I saw the flicker in his eyes as he switched tactics. "Oh, that bracelet? Yeah, I took it." Then he stepped closer, invading my space. His voice dropped to a whisper only I could hear. "I also gave a few of your lingerie pieces to the alpha and beta servants. You should have seen how much they loved your scent." The vile image his words painted made my stomach twist. Instinctively, I shoved him, but before my hand even made contact, Milo flung himself backward, crashing onto the floor with a loud thud. "Minjun, what are you doing?" Damien's voice thundered from behind. He rushed in, helping Milo. Then he turned on me, eyes blazing with fury, like a beast ready to strike. Milo clung to Damien's arm, tears magically glistening in his eyes. "It's my fault," he murmured. "Minjun Hyung only got mad because I was being inconsiderate. Please don't be angry with him." Damien let out a frustrated sigh. "He pushed you, and you're still defending him. I'd had enough of their nauseating little act. I didn't care about their performance, their pity, or their lies. Where's my jade bracelet?" I demanded again. At that moment, Damien's assistant burst in and leaned close to whisper something in his ear. Damien's face darkened instantly, his expression black as a brewing storm. "Park Minjun." He spat out my full name like the last 5 years had meant nothing. "You actually went and complained to my grandfather? I really misjudged you. Now he's demanding that I cut all ties with Milo. Are you happy now?" Damien's grandfather hadn't even attended the wedding last night because he was bedridden. Damien's grandpa was well into his 80s. I hadn't done it, but even an idiot could guess who had slipped the news to the grand patriarch of the Steele family. Before I could speak, Milo cut in, speaking to me. "Hyung, I didn't know you hated me this much. You can't even stand me being here. Can you? Fine. I'll go." With a flawless display of self-pity, that pretentious Omega pushed himself up and ran out dramatically, exactly straight out of a C or K melodrama. But that idiot Damien bought it. His face twisted with panic, and he actually bolted after Milo. The world tilted. My vision blurred again. I stumbled, striking my head hard against the corner of a protruding shelf. A sharp pain ripped through my skull. "Damien," I gasped, clutching the side of my head, calling him. "I'm hurt." But he didn't even stop. All he did was giving a cold, heartless command to the servants to care of me. Then he was gone, off in hot pursuit of that shameless, Oscar-worthy Omega. The servants crowded around me. No one called an ambulance. My vision swam, the world dimming at the edges. I could feel their nauseating presence, their stares heavy, predatory, in a way that made my stomach twist. "Move him inside," one of them said, his tone far too casual. The others exchanged glances that made every instinct in me scream run. Summoning the last of my strength, I pressed the emergency call button on my phone. The only name I could think of was Damien's, because once he had promised, "No matter where I am, Minjun, if your call rings, I'll come to you, even to the ends of the earth." But I was wrong. The only sound was the monotonous tone of a call left unanswered. Desperation surged through me. I fought against the hands closing in, but it was useless. They dragged me into a utility room. As the door slammed shut, I squeezed my eyes shut in fear. Then bang, bang, bang. The door exploded open, in a shower of splinters. When I woke again, the air was filled with the soothing scent of lime and Scott pheromones, gentle and grounding. It calmed me instantly. I was in a hospital. Dojin Steele was at my bedside in a heartbeat. "Baby, I was only away for half a day," he murmured, pressing my hand to his lips. "And you ended up like this." Warmth spread from his touch, easing the last traces of fear in me. "Nothing bad happened. You're safe now," Dojin said. "I waited outside for you for a long time," Dojin continued, his tone low and controlled. "Then I saw that idiot sprinting after a Bonga's Omega. I knew something was wrong, so I went in to find you." Right, Dojin was the Steele family's second young master. No one in that villa would have dared to stop him from entering. But remembering what had happened still made my stomach twist. I hesitated before asking, "What about those servants?" "Oh, them." He grinned, showing all teeth. "I sent them swimming in the river. No one gets out before 5 hours. He said it like a joke, as if he hadn't just ordered a punishment. But anyone who'd lived here knew exactly what that meant. 5 hours in a freezing river at night could render a man's lower half useless completely. "Thank you, Dojin," I whispered, the words tasting more like surrender than gratitude. This sudden subsequent admission to the hospital had the doctors running more tests on me than before. During my first admission, they said I was anemic. This time, the diagnosis clear. I was pregnant, with Damien's baby. After I was discharged, I moved into Dojin's apartment, or rather, my new home. He had already arranged to have my belongings brought over the day he rescued me. I would have preferred he hadn't. I didn't want anything tainted entering this new home. Here, there were no spiteful whispers, no servant gossip, no judgmental stares. Only one burden remained, the question of whether to keep or not to keep Damien's child growing inside me. It was the only shadow standing between me and Dojin. But Dojin made the decision for me. "Keep the baby," he said. "Dojin, you don't mind?" He gave a low, bitter laugh. "I do, actually. But the child is innocent. It was conceived in love, not hate. Why should it be punished for something it didn't do? Besides, this child is still one of Steele." For the first time in a long while, I could finally breathe. I had an alpha who truly cared for me, and the people in his home treated me with the respect I'd almost forgotten existed. Dojin remembered all my old favorites from our younger days, when our families still shared common goals. He cooked for me himself, ensuring I ate well for the baby. Under his meticulous care, the color returned to my cheeks, and warmth slowly found its way back into my life. During that time, Damien kept calling, thinking I'd just run off in anger. I wanted nothing more to do with him, so I blocked every number, every message. Whatever love we'd had frozen over that night, if it ever existed at all. Then fate threw me a high-quality slice of bacon. One afternoon, Dojin received word that my lost jade bracelet was set to appear as the highlight of Sunday's upcoming auction. When we pulled up to the venue and Dojin was still parking, I ran straight into the last people on Earth I wanted to see. The second Damien's eyes locked on mine, his hand slipped off Milo's arm like it burned him. "So now you know how to disappear without a word, huh?" Damien berated me. "You just packed up and vanished. No message, no call, no nothing. Do you have any idea how long I've been searching for you?" Milo's eyes skimmed me up and down. "Told you Hyung would be fine," he said in that fake honey tone. "But you never believed me, Damien." Then Milo's eyes brightened, as if spotting something he could sink his claws into. "Minjun Hyung, your clothes look expensive as hell. Don't tell me you've got yourself a new alpha sugar daddy now." Damien gave a low, contemptuous laugh. "Him? Please. Who'd want an omega that already belonged to another alpha?" His glare cut deep. "Enough games. You're coming home with me." Damien reached for my arm but caught nothing but air, because right then, a firm pull from behind yanked me out of his reach. "Watch your tone, Damien," Dojin cut in, voice sharp enough to slice through the tension. Damien froze. It took him a second to actually see who stood between us. Then his eyes widened, disbelief, meeting the killer eyes of his own younger brother. Back when we were teenagers, our families had arranged a marriage between the Steeles and the Parks. Damien had always assumed I was promised to him. He'd forgotten one thing. The Steele family had 2 sons. And Dojin, the other much quieter and reclusive heir, had always been the one who could go toe-to-toe with him in everything that mattered. "He's my omega, Damien," Dojin said, voice low and dangerous. So by definition, you should be calling him sister-in-law. Color drained from Damien's face as his gaze flicked between me and Dojin. Dojin, you begging for my foot in your fucking mouth? Minjun's my fiancé. Damien snapped back, radiating a threatening aura of the pack leader. His alpha instincts reacted instantly, every hair on end. I laughed. Then tell me, Damien, who's the Omega standing beside you? Milo's smile curdled into venom, hungered for a fight, but didn't dare start with half the ballroom watching. For Damien, sweat rolled down his temples. Torn, caught between guilt and pride, unsure which mask to wear. The auction was about to start, and I had zero patience left for either of them. I turned on my heels and walked straight into the main hall. Getting my family's jade bracelet back was my #1 goal tonight. Once we sat down, Dojin quietly slid the bidding paddle toward me. We're here on a mission, he said with a faint smile. Still, I owe you a wedding ring. So if you see something you like, go ahead, bid on it. It was simple, almost casual, yet somehow the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. More real than any promise of forever. After a few light bids, the main event began. Second on display, the auctioneer announced, is a rare jade bangle from an anonymous seller, a pure nephrite specimen. Our curators estimate it to date as far back to the 18th century. That was all true. My late mother and grandmother used to speak with fierce pride about this heirloom. How it began with our ancestor, Park Dae-yeon, an early scientific mind in the 18th century, who defied superstition and rose to become the royal mathematician in the Royal Academy of King Yongjo. That jade bangle was his betrothal gift to his wife, carved to mark his first fortune and my family's lineage beginning. Starting bid is 20 million, the auctioneer announced. The moment the bracelet appeared on the big screen, my heart seized. Its luminous green glow, the smooth, flawless curve, there was no doubt. It was my heirloom. I was about to raise my paddle when a familiar, guttural voice cut through the air. 30 million. I turned. Damien's eyes met mine. He gave me a smile I recognized twisted with guilt and haunted with remorse. To see what had been supposed to be a wedding showpiece for his substitute bride ended up in auction must have gutted him. 40 million and $1, I said. 50, Damien countered. I raised my paddle and said 50 million and $1. The room fell silent. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't bidding. It was out for blood. One by one, others backed off, unwilling to be caught in our crossfire. Damien hesitated, his confidence flickering. Then, just before the gavel fell, he raised his paddle again. 65 million. That was his breaking point. Beside me, Dojin caught my eye and gave a small, knowing wink, our signal to end the game. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold. A ripple of gasps and murmurs swept through the room. Guests turned, murmuring congratulations to Damien for winning such a historic piece of art. The attendants brought the jade bangle to him. Damien's expression shifted. Pure relief flooded his face, like a man who'd just snatched his life back from the edge of a cliff. Beside him, Milo perked up, eyes bright with expectation, expecting Damien to slip the bangle onto his wrist. But his face drained of color when Damien stood and walked toward me. Damien, where are you going with that jade bangle? Milo shot up, panic edging his voice. Damien turned back and glared at Milo. If you hadn't lost it, I wouldn't have had to spend 65 million getting it back. I'll deal with you later. He yanked his arm free, publicly, deliberately, giving Milo no face at all, and strode straight toward me. People around us instantly started talking. Isn't that Mr. Steele's newly wedded Omega? Why is he publicly humiliating his own wife? And why the hell is he walking toward someone else's Omega? Before the speculation died, Damien stopped before me. He opened a green velvet box, the jade bangle flashing like burning green fire under the ballroom lights. Minjun, I'm sorry, Damien said, voice solemn. Milo lost your bracelet. He didn't mean to. I got it back for you. Please, forgive me. He reached out, trying to slip the bangle onto my wrist. Cameras exploded around us, flash after flash, every click capturing the public confession his words couldn't fully say. Then Dojin's hand clamped onto his brother's forearm, gripped like iron. Brother, Dojin said evenly, open your eyes. Your Omega is the one behind you. Dojin, Damien snapped, his tone sharp. Know your place. This is between me and your sister-in-law. Stay out of it. As he spoke, his alpha pheromones flared, flooding the air, raw, aggressive, like a pack leader ready to defend his claim. Dojin followed, releasing his pheromones in full. The air thickened. Charged. My chest tightened. Knees unsteady. I clutched the table, trembling under the clash of two alphas. The crowd recoiled, whispering nervously. The auction master, a seasoned beta, hurried forward, voice tight with alarm. Gentlemen, please. This is a public venue, let's not. Stop. I tried to shout, but it came out barely a whimper, more a broken sound than a command. I'm sorry, baby, Dojin said quickly, pulling his pheromones back. He bent down, ready to scoop me up, but Damien blocked him, one arm across his chest. The air crackled again. They looked a few heartbeats away from a full-blown alpha showdown. This jade bangle was stolen from me. I finally managed to force words out of my mouth. Damien froze. The ballroom fell silent. Gossip died mid-breath. 100 eyes turned toward me, hungry for the truth. Pulling myself together, I sat up straight, Dojin's arm around me. Mr. Chairman, I said to the host of the event, could you check something for me? See if there's a half-moon mark inside the bangle. The auctioneer leaned closer under the spotlight. Yes, there is, Mr. Park Minjun. Good, I said. Now look again. There should be a faint dent on the northeast edge. He squinted, then nodded. You're right, Mr. Park. It's there. I closed my eyes and drew in a deep breath, steadying the chaos in my chest. When I opened them again, I spoke in a razor-sharp voice. Everyone, this bangle is my family heirloom. Lost to me after my ex-fiancé lent it to his stand-in bride on his wedding day on June 14th. The man sitting over there, I said, pointing at Milo across the table, was exactly that stand-in bride who stole my place. The room went still. Mr. Milo Wong didn't return the bangle. Instead, he slipped it into this auction under the radar, smuggled it through back channels, hoping no one would trace it. I handed a folder to the auction master. These are copies of my police report for the missing bracelet. Here are photos of my late grandmother wearing it on her wedding day, my mother wearing it on hers, and this one of me on the day I was engaged to Damien Steele. I lifted the box's lining and retrieved a laminated note. The half-moon engraving stands for my ancestor grandfather's words. Even when apart, we share the same light. And this dent, I brushed my thumb across the mark, was from the day my grandmother fell while fleeing the U.S. airstrikes that set Seoul City ablaze on the 1940s. I've requested the auction house management to conduct a full investigation into how this stolen heirloom made it here. CCTV footage surfaced soon after, and guess who appeared on the screen? Mr. Milo Wong. Through his private connections, he disguised himself as the anonymous seller who listed my jade bangle. Milo intended to hit two birds with one stone, pocket $65 million from Damien through the auction, and still reclaim the jade bangle. Too bad. His clever little plan looped right back and smacked him square in the face. With evidence this solid, I filed criminal charges and a civil claim against him. It didn't take long before the authorities issued an arrest warrant for Milo Wong.
Sick fan.
Soon, gossip from the Steele estate reached my ears. At first, Damien tried to pull strings to get Milo released. But as the investigation dug deeper, all the dirt buried under the silk sheets came crawling out. Police reports revealed Milo's so-called dying mother had never been sick at all. Her medical records showed she was perfectly healthy, vibrant, blissfully unaware of her Omega son's venomous schemes in the city. They said Damien finally lost it. The memory of having his true fiancée, Minjun, locked in a bathroom on their wedding day, so this conniving Omega could take her place, twisted his stomach. Rage boiled over. He smashed his fists into Milo's smug face, each blow tasting of bitter justice, before dragging his so-called official wife straight to the police precinct. My only regret was missing out on watching him turn that smug face into a punching bag. Damien never saw him again after that. The divorce papers came through his lawyer. With no one left to shield him, Milo was charged with grand theft and sentenced to 7 years behind bars. For the first time, the high and mighty pride of the Steeles crumbled. Mr. and Mrs. Steele, once untouchable, were left staring at their own disaster unfold. For blessing their son's betrayal by swapping Milo over me, a recessive Omega, for failing to give Damien an heir after being with him for 3 years. Their selfish judgment backfired. Their preferred an Omega-in-law barely a month old. Made the most scandalous headlines imaginable. Yes, call it karma. Damien came crawling, desperate. Can't we go back to how things used to be? I let out a bitter laugh. Go back to when, Damien? Back to the day you ignored my emergency call and left me to almost get sexually assaulted? Or to the day you locked me naked in the bathroom so your fake bride could take my place? Or maybe the day you secretly married him behind my back? He kept pleading. I didn't know. I hadn't know. I thought I was helping him. Now let me make things right between us? I sighed, drained. Damien, you married your first love, didn't you? Milo the Omega you always wanted since college. So why are you still clinging to me? Please forgive me, he begged. I want us back. I'm married, Damien. I pulled my hand away. His grip only tightened. Then, like me, get a divorce too. Before I could react, Dojin appeared behind Damien, his kick smashing into Damien's back and sending him crashing to the floor. A second later, his fist slammed into Damien's jaw. Damien froze, then exploded, lunging forward with a roar. They collided with the force of raging alphas, fists flying, rage spilling in raw, furious bursts. By the time the bodyguard intervened, Damien's face was bruised, thin line of blood at his mouth. Dojin, on the other hand, almost untouched, only his hairstyle ruined. Later, as I cleaned Dojin's wounds, he confessed, soft but steadily. Minjun, from the moment I first saw you 8 years ago, I liked you. I remembered those days when you moved into the Steel Mansion. Your family had lost everything. Yet you stood proud, refusing my grandpa's help, insisting on writing a promissory note. To repay him. Out of curiosity, I followed you to a quiet alley. There you were, leaning against a wall, crying. That's when I realized. Your strength was a brave disguise. Seeing we'd be at the same university, I just wanted to be close. I wanted to confess, but I was too chicken. Then I found that you and Damien were a thing. Damn it. I roasted myself for being too much of a chicken. His confession poured over me like rain, tender and aching. I reached out, wrapping him in my arms. Well, I whispered, now I'm your wife. He held me tight, voice low and resolute. And I'll never let go again. But just as he spoke, a ring tone broke the moment. Dojin Steel, come see me. The old man's voice booming through the receiver. This was my 4th visit. The first, to ask for help. The second, to repay a loan. The third, after Damien's proposal, to discuss the wedding. Back then, I'd been brimming with hope and joy. Who could have guessed that marriage would burn to ashes? Now, climbing the same Greystone steps, the man beside me wasn't Damien, but the second young master of the Steel family. Noticing the faint shadow of uncertainty in my eyes, Dojin squeezed my hand gently, a quiet reassurance against my nerves. Inside the main hall, grandfather sat at the high pedestal seat. Then my eyes widened pitifully to its maximum limit as I realized who knelt before him. Not just Damien, but his parents as well. Grandpa's first word to Dojin was sharp. Kneel. Then turning to me, he said gently, come. His heavily wrinkled, age-spotted hand patted the seat beside him. The old man's gaze swept over the three of us before he finally let out a heavy sigh. Damien broke the silence first. Grandpa, you see it now, right? Dojin stole my fiancée. You have to stand up for me. Dojin, you got married and dared to keep it from me. If your brother hadn't told me, how much longer were you planning to hide it? My eyes zeroed in on the Grandpa Steel. He didn't sound angry, not even a hint. If anything, you could say his expression carried pure excitement. This happened rather suddenly. Grandpapa, Dojin said, fleeting a glance at me with doting puppy eyes. Seeing those fleeting glances, Damien flung himself into the role of wounded victim, like a spoiled child whining after someone stole his favorite toy. Enough! The old man snapped at Damien, slamming his cane to the floor. You've embarrassed yourself enough already. Then Grandpa's gaze softened as it turned to me. Minjun, my dear, do you have anything to say for yourself? I bowed my head politely to the elder. Everyone knows Dojin and I are married. How could I still be Damien's fiancé? No. Damien blurted, scrambling forward on his knees and clutching my hands. Minjun, I was wrong, completely, unforgivably wrong. Maybe when I first confessed, my feelings weren't pure, but everything after that was real. I just realized it too late. I was a damn fool. I'll give you a wedding worthy of you. Okay, a damn fool you are. The old man's furious voice thundered, and he threw a teacup at Damien. He shrank back, letting go of my hand. Do you think marriage is a joke? I trusted you both, believed your union could be good. But after this, how could I ever face her parents after I die? Grandpa's cane then leveled at Damien's parents. And you too, the bigger fools, have the gall to go against me while I'm still breathing? Get out. Now, before you be the cause of my death. Minjun, Grandpa Steele said, his voice weary but steady. Our family wronged you. Your anger is justified. I gave a faint smile and shook my head. People's hearts change. No one can force them. Grandpa, you've always been kind to me, and I'm grateful. And besides, Dojin treats me very well. With that, Grandpa Steele blessed my marriage to Dojin. Before he was wheeled away to rest, he fixed Dojin with a stern gaze. Never fail, Minjun, like Damien or your parents did. That night, the full moon hung heavy over the city, silver light pooling across the terrace. I leaned against the railing of the balcony, the cool air brushing my skin. Dojin came up behind me, draping a blanket over my shoulders. Pick a wedding date, he whispered seductively, letting each word linger between us. A month later, I was out of his shadow and into a new life with Dojin Steele, carrying a little kicker, who was already making its presence known. Our wedding was nothing like the last one. Every detail, from the gown to the centerpieces, screamed me. The date I chose was a bright spring day, drenched in sunshine and warmth. No biting cold, no heartbreak, just clear skies and golden light, reflecting the life I now lived. After plunging into the deepest abyss, I had finally climbed out, shedding the sorrow and pain that once defined me. Above me stretched an open sky, and below me were a pair of strong alpha arms, and soon a pair of tiny, chubby ones. As for Damien, he never recovered. A pathetic fool who realized the value of what he'd lost only after it was gone, Damien made a final attempt to see me on my wedding eve. Dojin permitted it, believing it might bring me the closure I deserved. When I saw Damien again, all alpha fire had drained from him, leaving only defeat, bitterness, and the hollow ache of regret. His red-rimmed eyes pleaded. I want to know. If Milo had never come between us, would we have grown old together? I let out a quiet sigh. Life doesn't deal in what-ifs, Damien. I admit I loved you once. The high school you, the young alpha who protected me when I was orphaned, the one who promised 3 years ago I was the only omega for you. But no, it wouldn't have worked. Our problems were never about anyone else. They were about us. I admit I do have my fair share of the blame for how we ended up like this, and we must face the consequences of our own actions. The light in his eyes died. Shoulders slumped, he walked away, fading into the quiet of the night. Damien Steele soon spiraled into major depressive disorder, consumed by pervasive shame, guilt, and most of all, the pathological envy of his younger brother's complete happiness and ruminations over what might have been his. He was unable to focus at work, contributing to organizational dysfunction at the company. He became a frequent high-spending patron at nightclubs and isolating himself at home with bottles of alcohol. Unable to process loss, an unresolved attachment issue, he exhibited severe affect dysregulation and maladaptive coping. After days without contact, his parents sent men to break down his door, finding him on the verge of suicide, the same blue scarf he had knitted years ago around his neck. But please, don't make people laugh. Would a flimsy scarf able to even dangle an 80 kilograms alpha? What did you know? The alcohol had clearly fried all his brain cells. Ultimately, Damien entered structured psychotherapy, engaging in interventions to heal attachment wounds, regulate emotions, and rebuild adaptive coping. In early autumn, my darling little alpha made his grand debut into the world, announcing himself, with a squeal so fierce it practically shook the hospital building. His tiny lungs roared like a lion's, wobbling the walls, rattling the windows, and sending cats flying under the sofa, all in the cutest way possible. Having once loved Damien, I couldn't stand by and watch him self-destruct. So, I let baby Sujin meet his biological father. Cradling baby Sujin, Damien completely lost it. Not in sorrow, not in despair, but in pure, chaotic, uncontainable joy. At life's surprising twist, he laughed, cried, and hiccuped all at once, scaring his son into a bawling wail. Therapy sessions? He was healed on the spot. He fired the therapist. His medicine of healing? His son, a living piece of me, who wriggled and squeaked his way straight into Damien's heart, fixing him faster than any therapy ever could. But clinically speaking, Damien hadn't healed properly. He was only moving past the loss of me, his would-be wife, through his son. Well, to that matter, I had no eyes to see. That mess of psychological baggage. would fall onto the next unlucky Omega, who would share his life. But for now, at least liquor had lost its top spot in his heart. At least, he had a reason to get out of bed each day. His son waiting. A little life to look forward to. And honestly, that was a step. Enough for now.